Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. We're about to go live on Amazon Live. I wanted to go ahead and bring you guys in on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube to welcome you guys to today's broadcast, powered by Byte Cool Laptop. I mentioned to you guys all this week, it is on sale right now on Amazon. You guys can get it. We're going to talk a little bit more about that once we go live on Amazon Live platform. But today's guest is Phillip Clark. He's the author of this book, Under Color of Law. You guys see it there. You may remember I talked to Aaron on Conversations Live, the radio side, but now we're doing our first face-to-face conversation for Amazon Live to talk to him about the book, what it's been like for him to see the response to his main character, Finn, and of course, let you guys know why you should add this to your reading list. We're going to go ahead and bring in our Amazon Live family. And we welcome you all back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, here on the Amazon Live platform. Glad you all could be with us once again. I have a very special guest that's joining us today. Author Phillip Clark is the author of this book, Under Color of Law, out this month, just in time for National Book Month. We're going to talk to Aaron not only about the writing of the book, but also what it's been like for him to be able to bring these characters to life and what he hopes you as a reader are able to take away from it. Aaron, thank you so much for the time, man. Glad to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Well, man, we had a great conversation on the radio side for Conversations Live, so we're glad now to be able to have you here on the Amazon Live platform. Want to let our audience know, if you're tuning in on your desktop, laptop, or your phone, you notice Aaron's book is actually beneath us in the carousel that you guys see there. We have both the print and the Kindle editions both available. So, Aaron, I literally talked to you on Pub Day for the radio side of Conversations Live. What has it been like for you now that you've had some space to kind of see the response to the book?
Well, I mean, it's been overwhelming. So I am very pleased with the responses that I've received, and I try not to spend too much time looking at reviews. I kind of just might peruse it a little bit, and I've been able to see kind of the responses from readers, and I can say that the book did exactly what I hoped it would do. It entertained people, and then it also open the door to some very important opportunities for conversation.
And we're going to talk more about the conversations, because even though we have our main character, Finn, in the book, Aaron, he is the good guy. The idea of the good guy is really analyzing this. We're going to get more into that and him actually thinking about his own role as a good guy. Hello to you, Tracy, there on the Facebook side. Appreciate you being with us. Aaron, she says hello to you as well. Glad to have you on with us, Tracy. So I want to talk about the storytelling aspect. Did you know going into Under Color of Law, Aaron, that in order to be able to give us a full idea who Finn was, it had to be told in his voice?
Yes, because what first person allows is for that interior, kind of those interior monologues. So you get to see what Finn is thinking, and I really, really strive to have this vicarious. I wanted readers to have this vicarious experience with Finn, to really be in his shoes, and in order to get that result, I felt like the interior, having access to his interior, was imperative.
How difficult was that for you? Because in order for you to be able to tell his story, you had to put yourself in the place of I. What was that like for you to slip into his skin and to experience the world in situations as he did?
Well, I won't say that I'm like Trevor Finnegan. I mean, he's very much a character. So even though I have that the first person point of view, that I pronoun, the idea is that he's still his own person. And so while I am able to write from that point of view, I definitely keep it very separate from the life of Phillip Clark, the author, right? So while it allows for this kind of confessional aspect, it's not me who's doing the confessing.
Right. Yeah, I was curious about that, Aaron, because I think because it also then, by extension, causes the reader to say, what would I do in this situation? Because we then become Finn as well, right? Because of the way the book is written. So we're kind of navigating this in his shoes to kind of see how he's able to define what is right and wrong, and where he falls in everything. And we're going to get more into that. I want to say hello to those already tuning in on the Amazon Live side. I appreciate you all being on with us. As I said to our friends earlier, on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop those. We'll get those asked of Aaron as well. So Aaron, I want to go back to the idea. What was the genesis for Finn? How did this character first come to you?
Oh, so I mean, Finn really, I guess, in some ways, have been marinating for some time. So where we are similar is that I was in the LAPD training academy in 2014, and so while my time during the academy was rather short because I actually ended up getting injured, but while I was there, I witnessed a lot of things that kind of got my thought process going and the kind of the creative juices. And so, and one of the things that came to mind was this idea of having a recruit suffer a tragedy. And early on, I wasn't sure if the recruit would be the one who ultimately would be the victim. But I was thinking, what would happen? What would happen to me if I was in here? How would the police department go about it if something happened to me, something very tragic? And so that was kind of the genesis of Trevor Finnegan. And then I thought, okay, well, if it's not Trevor who's going to be the victim, what if Trevor is the one who's investigating it? And so the similarities between the victim and his life, them both being kind of the lone African American men in the academy, and essentially what that's like, and what if he now had to navigate the solving of this crime while at the same time contending with these experiences that he shared with the victim.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I think one of the big things that happens early on in the book, Aaron, and that is the way he wrestles with the idea of the law, even though he is, basically in law enforcement, but wrestling with it. In chapter 3 of the book, he says to us about justice, and I thought this was interesting. Justice was never assured, mystical, or spiritual. It was simple as a straight punch to a deserving jaw. Talk to us about that and his own ideals of justice and how sometimes it was something he had to wrestle with.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say for Trevor, that speaks to his thought process that, early on, he sees justice very much as right and wrong, it's black and white. And through his experience in law enforcement, he actually learns that it's not like that. It's actually very gray. And that every day he has to find, whatever he's going to determine to be his moral foundation, right? It's constantly changing because the job forces that on him. And so while in his past, in his youth, he saw it as that. He saw it as a straight punch, to a deserving jaw. I mean, he had these altercations, within school. He was very protective of his friends. And so he saw it as, right and wrong. And if it's wrong, this is what's going to happen. It isn't until he is a police officer that he realizes that that's not how it works at all. And so every day, to an extent, he is crossing those moral lines. It's kind of the concept of, it's wrong, but is it wrong for the right reason? And those are the things that he has to deal with every day on the job.
Such a great thing. Hello to you, Tamika. Glad to see you on with us there on the Facebook side. So, along the way, as we're kind of dealing with Finn, and his trying to navigate his job, you also give him the personal nature of his life that we're able to kind of dive into as well. The two don't always necessarily go together, but it does seem as though it does provide him some form of an anchor. What was that like for you to kind of show? Because a lot of times when we're talking about those in law enforcement, Aaron, as you know, we don't like to think of them really as humans. We don't like to think of them as people who have lives, who have relationships, who have feelings. So what was that like for you to kind of show us the feelings of Finn?
Well, it was important. I mean, as you said, we often don't think of them like that. There is this myth that police officers should be like Joe Friday from Dragnet, right? The idea of we're only interested in the facts and that's it. And we just do our job almost machine-like, and that's not accurate. So, police officers, while we don't want to, our police officers don't want to bring their personal life into the job. They do, they bring their personal feelings. So it's very much on the surface. It's not something that is kind of shoved in the background. And so it was important to show that Trevor is a real person, that he's three-dimensional, and that all these other issues that are going on in his life, on top of trying to solve this murder case, are just as palpable. They're just as palpable as what's going on in the city. They're just as palpable of the protests that are going on. It's just as palpable and just as topical as the murder itself and how it's impacting him. And so my approach to writing Trevor Finnegan is that it's not so much about how the detective works the case; it's how the case works the detective. It's the impact that it has on him as he's having to contend with other police officers, as he's having to contend with the department, as he's having to contend with his father, who is constantly kind of jabbing him in the ribs, so to speak, about his job and where he falls in the department, and that he's not really doing enough. That's how he sees it. And so all these things are very topical. They're all right there. So for me to write the story and really bring it to life, I needed to not ignore these things and instead embrace them.
Right. I think that's it. And I think that's one of the big things we see. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, you are watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on the Amazon Live platform. I appreciate you all hanging out with us there. If you guys do have any questions, I see you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. The book that you guys see highlighted there on the Amazon Live side is the book I have right here. And the author is right here too. And that is Aaron Phillip Clark. We're talking to him today about his book, Under Color of Law. It's out now, both in print as well as a Kindle edition. Also appreciate you guys joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter too. So the title of the book, we have to talk about that, Under Color of Law. Aaron, I mean, what was it like for you to look at, even though this book is, I think it's more than about race, but what was it like for you to kind of look at the role the race plays in Finn's life and in the story?
Yeah, so Under Color of Law is so there's some duality there, right? So the term is actually a legal term that essentially says that while you're a sworn officer in the capacity of your duty, if you do anything to break the law, it comes with additional enhancements. And so if it is a police officer who breaks the law while on the job or does anything within their law enforcement capacity, they are indeed in violation. And the Department of Justice, basically outlines what can potentially happen to them, some enhancements and additional prison time. So that's part of it. Now, the other part is under color of law, this idea that law is indeed this blanket. We see it as the blue wall. That's what Finn has to contend with. That's what he has to deal with. It's this idea that everything has now been colored. Law enforcement, it's been politicized, it's been colored this shade that he, to an extent, doesn't really understand all the time. But now he's operating within this, and it's not something he actually signed up for. It's something that has happened around him. He went into law enforcement with the idea that he would be able to protect and serve and better his community. And now there's this blanket of this color, if you will, that incorporates politicism, and he has to contend with that. And so it's a blanket that he's trying to get out from under. I think that's the best way I could put it.
You mentioned, though, I bring it up for a couple reasons. One, because you mentioned his father, because there are some interesting dynamics between Finn and his dad, especially in the situation that Finn's dad finds himself in, and here is Finn there, and basically Finn being told, you think you're rescuing me, and there's this interesting back and forth between the two of them, and agenda. I'll leave it at that for those who haven't read the book. You know what I'm talking about, Aaron. So what is that like for you, even in the family dynamic, as he's navigating again the two worlds colliding, his career and also his personal life? What was that like for you to kind of show that even those around him, like his dad, don't always share his thoughts and beliefs?
Well, I think it was important to show all these different types of point of view, and that really was my goal, was to say, just because his father was, it's kind of this. his father is the antithesis of that bleed blue mentality. The idea is that, just because you were in law enforcement means that now you have to agree with everything that's happening. But oftentimes for African American police officers and officers of color, we have to find a way to do the job without having that burden on us. And so when his father is now retired, his father is like, hey, I'm accepting that these things were not right and that I participated in them and I want to do something about it. And so he's trying to press that upon his son, but it's very hard to do when his son is in the same organization that his father is protesting against. And so that creates a very dynamic conflict, because it's father and son, but it's also two completely different ideologies and philosophies about the job. And so while he needs his father, because his father is full of advice for 20 plus years, in the department, so he goes to him for advice and consultation. He still has to now, that advice and consultation doesn't come the way that Finn prefers it. It comes with a little bit of a bite to it. His father takes these digs at him. And so that's just another level of conflict in I would say a novel full of conflict.
Yeah. The other one is Sarada, right? Did I say it right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Sarada,
yeah. So Sarada is also another character we're able to see how Finnegan interacts with, and there is a really powerful scene in the book, and I didn't talk about it when we were on the radio show, and I won't actually. I told you earlier I may read it, but I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't read it yet. But you'll know what I'm talking about, where he's basically realizing the cost of the decisions he's making, and he says to
Right.
her, what it could mean even to them. And basically, she says to him, we decide what happens to us. Talk to us about her role in his life and how she's not only a voice of reason, but also of support.
Yeah, she is very much his conscience in this novel. You know, I think there's a purity to Sarada. As I say it in the book, she looks at justice almost as as cosmic. She thinks that within this life, and there's a spiritual quality to it. It's like, this idea that people pay for what they do. She quotes James Baldwin. She says, people pay for what they do and still more for what they've allowed themselves to become. And they pay for it very simply with the lives that they live. And so that's her philosophy. And that goes completely against Finn, because he is the blunt instrument. If it's wrong, he's going to do something about it. And he's not going to think twice. And so, Sarah offers that juxtaposition, because she's saying, hey, there's actually another way here. There's sometimes walking away from something and believing that, justice will come about naturally, sometimes could be even better for your mental health. Right. So that's how she's decided to move through the world, because that's how she has to, in order for her to overcome the things that happen to her in her own life, her own trauma.
Yeah, I think that's it. And it's such a powerful thing. And so the way the book kind of goes, again, as I said in the beginning of it, Aaron, and hello to you, Dee. Appreciate you for being on with us. The way that the book goes, we really are wrestling with the idea of, as I mentioned earlier, that definition of justice, what justice looks like, and how it can be different from others. We know, of course, from Amazon that there will be more to Finn coming up. But what was it like for you to kind of do this introduction of him, Aaron, in this book, and then now start to give him to us, the reader?
I mean, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed looking at Finn as almost a character study. And I thought to myself, I said, police, African American police officers, for the most part, are somewhat invisible. You may see one or two in novels, and I would say that in more popular novels, they're the partner, they're the sidekick, and we don't spend a lot of time understanding their lives. We don't spend a lot of time understanding their backstory, and we don't get a lot of that. And we also don't, oftentimes people shy away from wanting to bring politics into it. And for me, having been in the academy, having law enforcement officers in my family, there is a great myth that people, especially when it comes to law enforcement, that they are not political. Uh, they have many opinions. I witnessed these opinions while in the academy. They have many thoughts on different matters, especially when it comes to law enforcement and things that are happening, especially when we see incidents that are recorded. They don't just look at that and say, "Oh, that's unfortunate." No, they have opinions, and so it's a great myth if we're writing, we're writing these characters and we just divorce them from all these other things that are happening around them and act as if these things somehow don't have any impact on how they go about doing their jobs and how they live their lives. It's just not realistic. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that this was rooted in reality, and that these things have an impact on the characters, whether they wear a badge or not.
Well, definitely is a powerful read. Encourage our audience to get it. Again, everyone, Aaron Phillip Clarke has been our guest. Under Color of Law is the book. You guys see it there. It's available in print as well as a Kindle edition here on Amazon.com. So you definitely can pick that up. And Aaron, how can they stay connected with you, man?
So you can stay connected with me at aaronphillipclarke.com. That is my official website. I am also on Facebook, and I am also on Twitter, and you can find me on Instagram. So social media, I'm on all those platforms, but I love getting feedback. So feel free to reach out to me on my official website, aaronphillipclarke.com. I try to answer every email that I receive.
I want to ask you an author question for a second, since we're on the Amazon Live platform, Aaron, before you leave. Because, of course, as I mentioned, this is National Book Month. A lot of people are not only reading a lot, but also thinking about those stories they want to tell. I'm sure already you're having people coming to you asking, how do you do it? What do you do? What advice do you normally give to people who are thinking they have a story they want to share?
Sit down and write it. That is the first step. So I encourage, and I'm also, I'll add that I teach creative writing. I've been an English professor for years. And so my approach with my students is always sit down and start writing. If Even if it becomes a sketch, even if it doesn't materialize into a novel, you have to start somewhere. And so once you have that and you've sat down and you've created something, and you feel like, hey, this is a workable novel. I might go out and I might shop this. The next step is to get some folks to read it. And so I always encourage people to have beta readers. And so readers who are going to tell you the truth, who are going to give you insight and feedback that is constructive. Obviously it'll be critical, but I say you have to take it. So you have to have this kind of open door where you're willing to accept everything, the good and the bad, and then you take it, and if it applies, you use it. Maybe you make some changes to your novel, maybe you don't. Maybe you say, no, that's going to change my book too much. Whatever it is for you, but the idea is to be humble and be open to receive all types of criticism and all types of praise.
All right. Again, everyone, Aaron Phillip Clarke has been our guest. Great conversation with you, Aaron. Thank you so much for dropping by the program. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's always my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And we thank you, more than welcome. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents here on the Amazon Live platform. Also, thank you to those tuning in on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. Make sure you guys, if you have not done so already, make sure you guys go over to Amazon to be able to get your copy of the book, Under Color of Law. You all can see it there. Already at the time we're having this conversation, almost 2,000 reviews on this book, on this book already. It's crazy. But it definitely is a read worth taking the trip on. So definitely take advantage of that. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys real soon. Take care.